Hey there, Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project, copyrighted edition for a video channel. Thanks for being here. And this is a missing persons video. And welcome. We've had an influx of new people in the last couple of weeks, substantial number. I appreciate you being here. And being part of the village, a couple of rules we have is everybody is honorable, polite, and respectful of each other's thoughts. So I appreciate everyone's comments, and please do on the video comment. A couple things about me. I listen to a lot of things from a lot of different people, and I get contacted hundreds of times a week. And when somebody makes a claim and they have no facts to back it up, I don't put a lot of credence in it, because claims are a dime a dozen. I don't call out anybody. I don't make fun of anybody. Personally, I'm very careful about what I say. As an example, there's a lot of claims out there that people are found without tongues, found without organs. Folks, I've researched approaching 8,000 cases of missing people from all over North America and 16 countries. I've never seen one of these cases. Now you might say, well, they're hidden, the government subverts it. Well, then how do you know it's even true? Be a critical thinker. Some people say, well, I have contacts in this position of government, and they may, but I can't tell you who it is, and I can't tell you where I'm getting the information. Then why should I believe the information? Again, I'm not gullible. I've been around too long. And there's a lot of people that latch onto my work from all facets of this world and say, oh, our work is directly related to Dave's. They do that because they know I have the facts to back up what I'm saying. So it brings a level of credibility to their work. I get that. I understand it. And if you've noticed, in the last several years, I've never said one bad thing about anybody, and I won't. Well, I'll say something bad about me, and then I'm going to defend myself. But I just don't do that. So if you come here, you're going to see facts. You're not going to see a lot of conjecture. You're not going to see any hypothesis. You're not going to hear me say, well, it appears that this caused that. No. Unless it's something circumstantial, strongly circumstantial, you're not going to hear it. So when people make claims that certain things are happening in certain parts of the world that I've investigated, I usually have pretty good contacts in those areas, and I can find out pretty quickly if it's happening or not. And I've done that just lately. I haven't found out anything that's happening anywhere unusual. So that's just me. If you're okay with just the factual approach, hang in there. You're in for a ride. One thing I do is at the beginning of each segment on missing people, I'll read you some letters I've received over the previous couple of years. I encourage people to think outside the box. And when we have a large group, hundreds of thousands of people watching this, listening, paying attention, being a critical thinker, which I ask of everyone, then maybe we'll find and we'll get somewhere where others don't. The power of a group. So here we go. First of all, in the last missing persons video, I gave you a free download on some herbs, wild herbs. Well, another very nice villager forwarded me a free download of the 1918 Fanny Farmer Cookbook. 702 pages of goodness. I will post this on that site under the description of the video. It's free. I went through it. There's some good stuff there. So, hey Dave, anyway, these disappearances could be time warp related, ? The sound like a trap snapping shut. I've only heard of that happening twice. Electrical disturbances opening the portal, weather anomaly. Could be related to the sun flares, kind of like the Manhattan Project stuff. Time warp explains that the person's erratic behavior and the overlooked evidence. The guy is in another time, not another place, phases back into the current when personal electrical field changes upon death. No opinion. Interesting thought. Next letter, Dave. I've been trying to work up the courage to reach out to you about my encounter. I really thought it was out of place of what I've been seeing on the missing 411 cases. However, I recently learned that you see and have saw strange phenomena in cases that cover things like what I'm about to explain. If you're new here, I spend a lot of time in the woods. And I pay attention to my surroundings. I don't wear headphones walking down the trail. And if you know somebody that does, you rip those things out of their ears and you tell them, wake up. You're missing a great part of life. And if you don't wear those headphones, you actually may save your own life. Here's the letter goes on. So I thought I would give you my story to share, or do what you will. I will say I've contacted MUFON, that's the Mutual UFO Network, many, many years ago and received an email back. They said at the time they had heard of this creature, but to their knowledge, mine would be the first time this creature would have made a known contact with anyone. So here's my story. I'll start out by saying I live in the foothills of South Carolina. Most of my life I was born in 73. I live in South Carolina most of my life. I was born in 73. So at the time of this, I would have been about 4 years old. 1977, Greenville, South Carolina. I lived in a trailer park called Mr. Hickham's. Single wide white trailer with a red trim. One hot day about noon, had to be on a Saturday because my parents were home. My two older brothers, Mike and John, 4 and 2 years older than me. I was the youngest ran out of the house and I followed them but was not able to keep up. By the time I got down to the bottom of the stairs, I assumed they ran behind our trailer, so I ran as fast as I could to catch up. However, when I rounded the corner of our single wide, I was shocked and stunned by this 7-foot or 8-foot creature that was like a giant praying mantis. My brothers were nowhere in sight. I went to scream, but no sound came out. Stop right there. Now, some of you may say, oh, Dave, this is so stupid. Why are you reading this? Well, many of you know I've been a MUFON investigator for way over a decade. I read hundreds of their reports. This has been seen by many people over the years. And the more I read about this story, it sounded incredible. My brothers were nowhere in sight. I went to scream, but no sound came out. The no sound coming out is in also many reports I've read associated with encounters. The next thing I remember, it was near dark and I was running back up the steps to my front door. My mom was standing at the door calling my name. I came in and I was crying and burning between my legs. My mom was concerned and took me and laid me on her bed. I remember she pulled my underwear down and I was kind of embarrassed but was hurting so bad I was scared. She didn't see anything and still remembers this, except I never told her about the giant mantis. I actually didn't know what it was at the time. At the same trailer park, we moved across the dirt drive to a bigger trailer. I was still about the same age, when my two brothers and some other kids were all looking at something. I walked around the back of our double wide, and one of the kids had a glass jar over the top of an insect. They were arguing over it being called the grasshopper or praying mantis. When I got close enough to actually see what it was, I was stopped dead in my tracks. My heart began to pound, and I remember feeling scared, actually terrified. It's when I realized what I saw was a very large-scale version of that, a praying mantis. Never told anyone my whole life what I saw till around 2011, 2012. The time of the internet was popular, and I was watching a TV series called Ancient Aliens. I've been on that show. My husband was saying how this stuff was likely made up or faked, and I said I had a strange experience as a child. I know I was 100% real. I had missing time with my family, although they were concerned with me when I got back, never actually missed me. I saw the sun up mid-sky and walked out that day, and after running into a giant praying mantis creature, I didn't remember anything until coming back on the steps of the trailer. I mentioned the burning between my legs, and at that moment I began to feel like maybe that had something to do with me not being able to have children naturally. I had to have C-sections both times. My husband actually thought I was making up the story for fun. I said, okay, I will. Google it. I had a phone in hand, and I did just that. I Googled Mantis aliens, and my mouth fell open when the search results yielded others with similar stories. My husband also shocked when I said, well, here are others. At the time, it bothered me all over again. And every time I would try to look up info on it, I would get really sleepy and just fall asleep. The next morning, I would think, wow, I really just passed out cold last night, which was odd for me because I'd always had trouble going to sleep once I was a child. So probably around a year later, I emailed MUFON. I was even scared then. Usually, incidents with praying mantises don't end up well, according to witnesses. Just like this girl, this lady, there was some side effect to it. Also, I've had a photographic memory and remember things that others seem not to recall about detail in my family's life, like street addresses, directions that I visited when I was really young, etc. My mom was shocked that I drove right to my aunt's home as an adult when I had not been there since I was 9. When I was 11, I had my first dream about an event that happened the next day actually happened. That has also been something that has been a theme in my life. Lastly, I want to mention the video that inspired me to write to you was, you spoke on a suicide of a young man that lived in Ogden County, Utah, Cody, Wyoming. His dad was a doctor, town doctor. In 2015, the 28th, we lost our 24-year-old son, Matt, to suicide. In our home. We still live in the same home today. It was a traumatic experience, and if not for our faith in the Lord and the prayer, the Lord laid on my heart that Monday morning, Godspeed the healing, was what he impressed upon me to pray and share to my family. We would not have been able to survive. I know the feeling. Our son had shared with me 2 months before he passed that he saw a creature, a demon-like creature with giant wings, and described the cartilage and skin color of this demon. He saw it when he was home alone one day and called me while I was at the store asking where I was. He was outside and said he saw something terrible upstairs in his room. It tapped him on the shoulder and he turned around and couldn't believe it was real. He refused to go back in our home, and I told him I would be there as soon as I could get home. He was a grown man and was in a 5-year relationship and had a 4-year-old daughter. They were separated at this time. He was terrified. He didn't use drugs or drink. We don't use drugs or drink. He turned 24 the next month, and 3 days after Christmas, about a month later, he took his life. I can't explain these things. I can say I feel strongly that this portal people are speaking of seems like where these creatures come from, the portal. I told my son that day on the phone to tell me what he saw because he kept saying you will never believe me. And I said for the first time to him about the Mantis creature when I was a kid. That's when he told me what he saw. Praying for a hedge and protection around every child and everyone that finds themselves in a scary situation. May the Lord bless them and all them all in every way. May the Lord bless you and your team as well. Provide ultimate protection and Godspeed healing prayers for all the families in these cases. In Jesus' name we pray and amen. Quite a story. And like I said, I've heard similar ones many times before. So even though you may have not heard this has been going on for decades. Next story. Hey Dave, having grown up on the Great Lakes, I thought I'd write to address a statement you made when talking about youths who disappeared on Lake Ontario. While you are right in most cases that bodies of drowning victims will return to the surface and eventually wash up on shore due to normal body composition causing gases to form in the body, this is not necessarily true on the Great Lakes. It's not necessarily true on any lake that is deep and the water at the bottom stays very cold and never really warms. Superior said never gives up their dead. This is not just a line in a song that was used because of its rhymes. Lake Superior being the deepest and coldest of the Great Lakes is well known for bodies sinking to the bottom when the lungs fill with water and never rising again, as extremely cold water temperatures effectively prevent dead bodies from decomposing and they would be in warmer waters. As proof, when researchers found the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, some of the video reportedly captured images of crewmen who drowned in the 1970s still in a state of preservation. While Lake Ontario is certainly warmer and shallower than Superior, I think that is at least possible that if the drownings happened at the right season over a deep enough area, that a similar condition might prevent the bodies from returning to shore. Just trying to provide a different perspective. I appreciate your books. Thank you. So what I never understood about that story of the 6 young men who disappeared is why they didn't side scan that lake for bodies. If they did, they didn't publicize it much. And as a parent, I would have done it. If you've watched movies about body recoveries on lakes and rivers, there's a side scan technology where the bottom of that lake or river almost looks like a picture. It's so accurate. They can pick up anything on the bottom and differentiate it perfectly. Again, I don't know if it was never advertised as being done. It should have been. Next story. Dave, I don't have any story to share. I'm reaching out to provide encouragement regarding the letters you read. I believe the letters are vital to the Missing 411 project. Collective intelligence is a real phenomenon of the internet. Think of the internet as a giant brain. The human brain takes in more information than we realize, but it naturally quiets unimportant information and amplifies inputs such as threats, patterns, and foreign concepts or objects. The brain wants to learn, solve, categorize, and predict. The collective intelligence of the internet works the same as a brain in this way. For this reason, it needs as much input, information, and ideas as possible. For those that don't want the letters, are likely not interested in finding answers, but instead are looking for entertainment. There are many true crime channels they can watch for that. Those that want answers and want to contribute to finding the truth, we appreciate the letters. Thanks for your dedication. And the letters are not going to stop. For the people that are new, about a year ago I started to get a series of rude responses to the letters. And I would say the villagers overwhelmingly said, keep the letters coming. So we did, and we will, and they're not going to stop. Hey Dave, read a half dozen of your books, and one of the theories I've thought quite a bit about is that people disappearing through portals. If there are such portals, and there are, could it be that at least some of the portals are guided by some intelligence? Personal thought, all portals are guided by some intelligence. It's my personal view, and that's based upon conversations with theoretical physicists much smarter than me. How many times do more than one person disappear at a time? Hardly ever. If guided by some intelligent entity, for whatever reason, it sees the point of separation and directs the portal toward one of the people, usually the most vulnerable. Maybe this would explain why so many of the special needs or special circumstances, feeling ill, suddenly tired, need to take a break, etc., are taken. When you say the most susceptible, maybe the entity that's looking into it wanted that person. So maybe they made the other person get sick, or made that person get sick, or whatever theory or strategy they have to get that person in a position. I don't know. Just speaking out loud. Next letter. Hey Dave, I wanted to share a very brief story on how your videos have impacted my awareness and vigilance when in the outdoors with young children. This weekend, a bunch of off-roading friends gathered at the beautiful and remote Sierra Buttes area of Sierra and Plumas County, California. A friend of mine brought his two young sons, 5 and 8. While filling up at the only gas station for miles, the youngest boy told his father that he needed to relieve himself. The father, who was in a conversation, told his son to go over behind the small building at the edge of the thick forest at the gas station. As I watched the boy walk away from the group, I began thinking of your videos and all the stories of the missing children. The buttes are one gigantic outcropping of granite, and it's surrounded by alpine lakes. I knew I was looking at a point of separation. Immediately, I began scanning everything from the time to descriptions, cars, people mulling around, and the boy who was wearing, etc. As he vanished behind the small building, I couldn't help but count the seconds go by until, only after a brief moment, his little blonde head reemerged from behind the building and he ran back over to his dad, still deep in conversation. So, it's really a story about nothing, but it's also a story with a simple ending, and that some families you cover would give anything to have had. Thank you for all the time, and God bless. I'm glad some people are paying attention to this. Now, first of all, a parent. To every parent out there coming from a 20-year law enforcement person, do not ever let your children go to a public restroom alone. Never. Public restrooms are a place that perverts, child molesters hang out regularly. Now, 999,000 times, nothing may happen. But do you want your child to be that one person? No. Don't let it happen. Quick story. When I was working Vice Intelligence, there was a big mall in San Jose. And at the mall's restroom, specifically at Macy's, they had a series of complaints from customers about lewd conduct going on in the restroom, the men's room specifically. So the department sent it up to Vice Intelligence, and they said, boys, men, go in there and make some arrests. So first we went up to and met with Macy's security. Now you got to remember, we're working Vice. We have long hair, beards. We don't look like normal cops. And we asked them what was going on, what time this was happening, blah, blah, blah. So Macy's security told us, yeah, we'll back you up, no problem. So the first officer goes in. Within like 20 minutes of us just going in one at a time, we watch two men doing something obviously obscene, illegal, right as you walk in the bathroom. So we arrested them both, take them down to the security office, split them up, interview them. They've been coming to this place for 3 or 4 years, meeting different people, doing weird stuff. I said, didn't you realize it's against the law to do that in a public place? Oh, yeah. Well, why would you do that? Oh, I don't know. Needless to say, we ended up booking about 50 men in probably 2.5 weeks. And one of those men was a professor at San Jose State. So, to the point, don't let your small children go to a bathroom alone, ever. public restroom. Thank you. Those were not the best moments in my police career. Next report. Hey, Dave. After watching your presentation today, I started thinking about something you said repeatedly. Nothing was ever found. Once in a while, over my lifetime of walking in the woods of Maine with my dogs, I've come across articles left in the woods by other hikers. I always have a small trash bag with me, pick it up, carry it out, and throw it away. My first reaction is usually irritation that humans think they can litter our beautiful planet and leave their trash wherever they drop it. Bingo! I hate that. I don't hate much in life, but I do not like people that don't take their trash out of the wilderness. If I see you littering on a trail in the middle of nowhere, sorry, I'm going to say something. And I will pick it up in your presence, put it in my backpack, and I will still say something to you. It's not that hard, folks. It's not that hard. I'm sorry, that's one of my pet peeves. To be honest, it never crossed my mind that someone in previous years had been lost in the woods and never been found, so I never thought to report my finding to any law enforcement agency in case the article belonged to a missing person. I just threw it away. Is there some type of written protocol procedure for this? I would say no, but if you happen to come across something that's really strange, I would call, if you're in a national park, I'd call the National Park Service Police. If it was a national forest, the U.S. Forest Service has a police agency as well. I'd call them. If it was a state park, I'd call the state police. Since there's no published list of missing people in the area they disappeared, I bet there are huge numbers of people hiking that are just like me and don't think about it either. Oh, I guarantee it. So they pick up an old tennis shoe, water bottle, carry it out, throw it away while grumbling about inconsiderate, selfish, self-absorbed boobs. Yeah. I will be more aware of other possibilities going forward, because maybe something was found but thoroughly discarded and just never reported to authorities. Possible. And if nothing else, you're doing a good deed by cleaning up the wilderness. Next letter. First, my heart and prayers go out to you and your family in this time of loss. I was given advice during a time of great loss, which I was lean on to this day. You will lose stuff and become forgetfully expected. People will show you the ugliest part of themselves. Most important, when someone wants to love you, let them. We love you and your family, Dave. I hope you feel it. I do. I also wanted to share a life experience with you. They may or may not add insight. However, it speaks to things that can't be explained. For as long as I can remember, I always experienced sleep paralysis episodes. That's a real thing. I've read hundreds of cases of it. To the best of my recollection, I was always aware of my surroundings and fought to move with everything in me. If only I could move a finger, maybe roll over, anything. To move something would usually bring it out of me, but this approach has changed, as you will see. I'll start with the letter first. I put my nephew, 4 years old, and my son, 2 years, down for a nap and decided to do the same. Their bedrooms are on separate landings than where my bedroom was. Lying with my back to the bedroom door, I could hear my nephew and son running up and down the stairs as I lay in a paralyzed sleep. I could hear their tiny feet. Every now and then I felt my son climb on my bed and crawl towards me, actually feeling the bed move. I hoped with everything in me that he would shake me so it would snap me out of it. He never did. When I finally snapped out of it, I got up to find both my boys still sleeping in their respective beds. The other occurrence happened shortly after my true baptism. I came home, decided to take a nap, and you guessed it. This time I decided not to fight, relaxed, and gave in. It seemed like this growl came from deep within. and I could feel myself lifting off the bed. Instantly I thought, Jesus help me, and everything stopped. I felt myself return to my bed and I snapped out of it. That feeling had not returned until the above-mentioned incident and not since then. My son is now 24, and my nephew passed away in 2009 at the age of 16 of carbon monoxide poisoning. He was like my son, and I still cry as if it was yesterday. I still allow love from those who want to express it. Yours in Christ. Thank you. Letters are valuable. It makes you think, opens your mind, and makes you have empathy for others. Because there's a lot of people out there that need it. A lot of us who care. Okay, on to the missing stories. First case, a man named Daryl Dow, 40 years old. He went missing September 13th, 2005 at Mount Assiniboine, British Columbia. Darryl was born in June of 65 in Norway House, Manitoba. He lived most of his life in a city called Killarney. He was active in the Boy Scouts when he was young. He was a lifeguard, loved the water. And he also loved the Canadian sport of curling. He attended the University of Manitoba, and he moved to Flin Flon to be an emergency medical technician. And that's really where his life started to take off. He knew that being an EMT would constrain on his ability to do more and be more in life. So in 91, he moved to Edmonton, Alberta to attend the NAIT paramedic program. Well, 2 years later, he graduated with honors from the program. And in 1993, he joined Edmonton Emergency Services. And in 2005, he was made acting superintendent of paramedic services for the city of Edmonton. A huge achievement. Darryl loved the outdoors, and especially loved climbing. He played volleyball and soccer as an adult. He rode his bike to work every day. And he ran the Edmonton Marathon, and he took in several other long endurance sports to challenge himself and his body. He lived with his common-law wife and her kids. He had superb survival skills and was described to be in phenomenal shape for being 40 years old. So this is Darryl. I want to talk to you a little bit and give you a little background on paramedics and firefighters. In many big cities in America, paramedics are also firefighters, and they're usually under the same command structure. But I consider them the same because they're the same sort of people that do both jobs. They're special people, folks. That's all I can tell you. They're special people. Those two professions are many of the times, and a majority of the times, the first on scene at horrific life moments. Horrific. As a policeman, I can't tell you the number of times I got a call of a major injury accident. I was the primary police response, and I was to get there as fast as I could. Code 3, lights and sirens. Well, fire engines are located in parts of every American city, and they're in districts, locales, neighborhoods. And usually the firefighters get there before the police. And if there's a paramedic unit in that firehouse, they usually get there before us. Thank goodness. And why I say that. I knew when I wanted to be a policeman, I did not want to be a paramedic. Because I knew paramedics see life's worst moments. They see accident scenes and horror associated and pain associated with people daily. Now, in that moment, when you're aiding those people, you just have an ability to suppress what you're seeing and help those people at a time of need. At the times where I saw stabbing victims, shooting victims, and bad accidents, that's what I had to do. But there's no way I could have survived seeing it daily like paramedics and firefighters. A story. I was working in Merge. I was on the SWAT team in San Jose. And I had arrested somebody for sales of methamphetamine, possession for sale, and being under the influence. And this person was so far under the influence, the jail wouldn't take him. I had to go to the Valley Medical Center and get him medically cleared. So I'm standing there with him handcuffed to a gurney, and I'm hearing over their two-way communications that they have an ambulance coming in with 2 car accident victims in serious condition, burn victims. And as I'm there with my suspect, the ambulance backs up, and these 2 young people, I couldn't look. Honest to God, I could not look. Come out of the ambulance. And folks, they're screaming in pain like you cannot imagine. And I'm in the next room over from the primary trauma unit, and the odor coming from their burnt skin was coming into our room. I had never smelled something like that in my life. Even my prisoner, as jacked up as he was on crank, was in stunned silence out of what we were hearing. And I think about the paramedics riding in the back of that rig with these kids in excruciating pain. And I know that I knew the paramedic in the back of that rig had already gotten permission from the ER doctor to load them up with the biggest painkillers in the world, and it did nothing. I can remember going home that night. And those screams. Horrible. Horrible. It's been years now, and I can still hear those screams in my mind. I prayed that those kids were okay. I prayed that the pain would end. So, I've known a lot of paramedics over my time. Arrived at crime scenes with them, got to know them as people. The best. The best. The relationship we had with them was always great. And we were a team. They knew that I would bust my hump if I ever heard a call where they needed our help. And we knew they would do everything in their power to save us if we were hurt. It was just unsaid. In this time in our country, I worry that enough young people are going to these jobs where we really need good souls. We need them. Okay, so that's my talk about paramedics. And that's what Daryl Dow was, 40 years old. Edmonton, Alberta. And in September 2005, Darryl took a road trip. His common-law wife was busy with her kids. She couldn't get away. He had some time off of work. He went to Saskatchewan, went to a concert, met some friends there, and then drove back across and went into British Columbia. He spent the night before heading up to Mount Assiniboine to climb. On September 7th, 2005, he called his wife and said, "Hey, everything's good. I'm going to be climbing from the British Columbia side, not the Alberta side. And I'll call you back when I get an update." So, I want to show you a map here. Here's Calgary, Alberta. Edmonton is up here. And this is Mount Assiniboine. This is the route up the western side of the Canadian Rockies. This is Banff up here. If you've never been in the Canadian Rockies, I would encourage you to go. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, the mountain that he's climbing had a very unique appearance, like a pyramid. There's the mountain. Very, very unique. And many people have said that it looks like the Matterhorn. It's 5,003 feet above a lake at the bottom down here called Magog. Well, on September 13th, Darryl hadn't called his wife, and she called the RCMP and reported him missing because he should have been up and down by then. Well, they started looking, and on the 14th, they found his car in a place called Aurora Creek near the bottom of the mountain on the BC side. It was where it should have been. And from where his car was parked, they knew the route that he would have taken to get up the mountain, which was good. So on the 15th, September 15th, they put a series of professional climbing teams on that mountain, along with 2 canine teams. And they searched it for 3 days. Found nothing. No disturbance on the mountain, nothing suspicious, no recent avalanches, nothing. The search and rescue coordinator made a statement to the Canadian press saying it's totally baffling because there was no sign of Darryl being on that mountain whatsoever. Well, on the 16th of September, he missed his shift. They knew he would never miss a shift. And they terminated the search. Now, what frustrated the Edmonton firefighters, police officers, and paramedics is that they couldn't do more. Most of these people are in good shape, most. And I can guarantee if somebody's lost, somebody's hurt, everyone is going to rally around it. And everyone tried, but they really couldn't do much. Now, there was nothing about this case except that enormous frustration, and searchers were baffled because they found nothing. Canines didn't find a scent. On August 10th, 2006, 11 months after Darryl disappears, a series of climbers were on a glacier, unnamed glacier, on the mountain, and they found his body. And it was on the route that he was supposedly had taken. They said that the mountain had receded and snow had melted, and maybe that had exposed the body. And they were looking for an explanation as to how they missed it, because they didn't have one. But he was found in an area that was previously searched. Canines couldn't find him, and there was water right at the bottom of the mountain, a huge lake. Kind of weird. It's weird that the mountain has that pyramid shape, and it's quite unusual. I'll show it to you again. That's Mount Assiniboine, Assiniboine, in British Columbia, Alberta, right on the border. find that case unusual because people said Daryl was extremely fit, extremely smart, extremely careful, and had huge survival skills. That, coupled with the statement from search and rescue that they found nothing. Sorry, folks. I had to include it. I think it's odd. Really odd. Now, maybe not as odd as the next story, but odd nonetheless. Somebody just wrote to me about this, and I thought, oh, that's funny because I had just talked about a case in this exact area a couple weeks ago. If you regulars remember, this is the exact same map I used in the previous video. This is Washington. This is Olympic National Park. This is Nia Bay. This is Vancouver Island. I talked to you about a man who disappeared fishing on Saanich Inlet. He disappeared for about a month. They found his boat washed up on shore. He was found working a month and a half later in another part of the country. Never had any memory from the time he was fishing. Boom, gone. And then he had a scar, and they called it amnesia. Very suspect. Now this case, the man lives right here in Duncan, and I'll explain the rest in a minute. A lot of disappearances all over that map. Northern Washington, a lot of disappearances. The date's November 29th, 1980. The man's name was Granger Taylor, 32 years old. Lived in Duncan, British Columbia with his parents on a farm that overlooked a lake and swamps. Keep that in your mind. He was raised by his mom and his stepdad. He was described as extremely introspective, quiet, and a genius. He quit school in 8th grade and went to work as an assistant mechanic at an auto shop. He worked there for just a short period of time, quit, started fixing cars all on his own. He was considered a master mechanic with many awards for his amazing abilities. His home overlooked Somenos, S-O-M-E-N-O-S, Somenos Lake in Vancouver Island. In the 1970s, he started to study UFOs. He owned 2 trucks and a 1972 light blue Datsun car. His friends called Granger an eccentric genius who could fix anything, who was polite, respectful, sounded like a great person. In October 1980, he told friends that while he was laying in bed, he had mental, mind-to-mind communications with some type of entity that invited him onto a ship to explore the galaxy. Friends didn't think much about it, but 2 weeks later, Granger invites those friends to dinner as a goodbye dinner. He goes, yeah, I'll be gone for 4.5 years. Well, during that time, he built his dog, a Newfoundland dog, a big, beautiful dog house to live in. Well, on November 28th, the day before his disappearance, he went to his father's room when his dad was getting ready for bed. And his mom was gone in Hawaii, the first time she had ever gone on vacation like that. Walked into his dad's room, and he said, Dad, I realized you were my stepdad, and you treated me with ultimate respect and dignity, and you gave me every opportunity in the world to thrive, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done for me. I'm going to be leaving tomorrow. I think I'm coming back, but I'm not sure. but I've left 2 wills for everything in my possession. And he did have possessions. In years prior, he built an identical replica to the Kitty Hawk, and it was on display in a business in their garage. And somebody came along and bought it for $20,000. This is how good this man was at building things and mechanics. Well, on the 29th, he went to dinner at a place called Bob's Diner in Duncan, British Columbia. He'd been a regular there. The waitresses knew him. Said he was very quiet, very respectful, very polite. He had dinner, and he left a note for his dad late that afternoon. And on the back of the note for his dad, there was a contour map for Mount Waterloo, and it was circled. Well, when he left that diner, people said there was nothing unusual about it. He left like he always did. He was gone. Nobody heard from him again. He was gone. Well, he's supposed to return in 42 months. Well, that night that he disappeared, hurricane force winds hit Vancouver Island and knocked out the electricity to all that area in Duncan where he lived and many other parts. Kind of a weird coincidence. This is Duncan. 6'2", 260 pounds, and he was not out of shape. He was in very good shape. He worked out, and he was a wrestler. He actually had a big wrestling mat at home, and some of Canadians' best wrestlers came to him and wrestled with him to train. The story reminds me of an X-Files story. To anyone who follows X-Files. Now, subsequent articles were written after he was supposed to come back, and he didn't. And the article said that he left in that Datsun of his, and the weird thing is that the Datsun was never found. Now, that was at month 45 after he was gone. A year after that, somebody was deep in the woods in British Columbia and finds a giant hole in the ground. Like there was a big explosion. The article stated that they found 2 small human bones, that's it, around that area. And they found some small remains of a car or a truck, but they never could find the VIN number. The allegations were that Granger had possibly taken some dynamite from his dad and blown up his truck with him in it. Now, the bones were never proven to be his, and the best I could tell is the truck was never proven to be his because they could never find the VIN number. But they always had a strong innuendo that this was him. I find the whole thing suspicious. Granger was super smart, and that fits the profile of other people that have disappeared that I've written about. He was not suicidal in the least. Now, when he was younger, several years before he disappeared, he actually built a spaceship on his parents' property. It was phenomenal. He did a great job. He used 2 giant discs, like communications discs, and put them together. And it was awesome looking. He had a ramp going up to it. And his dad said every once in a while he'd go out there and sleep in it. Do I believe he killed himself? No. Do I believe that his truck was there? if his truck was there, that was never mentioned in anything I read at the time he disappeared or at that 42-month cycle. The articles all talked about the Datsun being gone, not a truck. And then all of a sudden, they wanted to make his truck as something that was up there that blew apart. In any event, the important part of this story. This is the area of the back of the note he left his dad. Now, the note was just a very polite note. I love you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not coming back. And if I do, I'll be back in 42 months. This area, I've stated many times, I'll say it again, there's all kinds of people that have disappeared. This area, all kinds of people that have disappeared. This goes directly out to the ocean. I believe this is called the Straits of the Juan de Fuca. I've always looked at this as a very, very unusual stretch of water. The man I wrote to you about before disappeared on a stretch of water there fishing. And from there to there, it's only about 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles. Not very far. So, all of this has many disappearances. Granger Taylor, 32 years old when he disappeared, November 29th, 1980, Duncan, British Columbia. Fascinating story. And Daryl Dow, 40 years old, missing September 13th, 2005. So friends, I tell this to you occasionally. These are all real people. When Granger Taylor disappeared, his folks were devastated, as any parent would be. They had a brilliant young son. He was brilliant, and he was gone. What do you do with that? I'm sure they felt just like I felt when I lost my son. What do you do with that? What do you do with that void in your life? I don't have answers. Still trying to cope with it. I appreciate you being here. I'm deeply indebted that anyone wants to watch this. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up in support, because a lot of people are giving it thumbs down from the other side who don't want me to succeed. I'd love to hear your comments. You can follow me on Twitter at David Paulides, a Canadian Missing. I post there about daily. And I appreciate the opportunity you've given me here today. Peace. Do something friendly, honorable for someone out there today. When you go to the store, hold the door open, carry some groceries for an older person, help someone who's disabled. Go home knowing you left a positive impact on somebody. Paulides out.